Let's go to Psalm 3. We will begin there. Psalm 3 is, and we have mentioned this at times, especially when we were talking about the book of Psalms, which has been several years ago. David seems to be one, I ought to take the word seems out. David is one who writes psalms when things are going bad and when things are good. He's one, just look at this. This is Psalm 3, a psalm of David when he fled from Absalom, his son. All right, he is fleeing from Absalom, who wants David dead. He wants the crown, and he wants to take it from his father. And David is, as he's fleeing from his son, he takes time to write this psalm. Now that's an extraordinary person who's doing that. And we began in verse 1. Now Psalm 3. Lord, how they have increased who trouble me. Many are they who rise up against me. And who could have predicted that one of David's sons would be doing this? Who could have predicted it? David certainly did not. Now it was God who said, the sword would not depart from David's house. And he's told that through Nathan the prophet. Nathan the prophet tells David that, and now he is seeing that, that is the case. The sword is in his house. Now verse 2, many are they who say to me, there is no help for him in God. Then we have the word Selah. All right, many are they who say to me, there is no help for him in God. Let's just think about that for a moment. Because while Absalom is a wicked man, and we do have what could become a terrible civil war inside of Israel, with part being loyal to the would-be king, Absalom, and the other to the one who is King David. While there could be that, here are those who are saying, God can't help him. God cannot help David. Many are those who say to me, God cannot help him. Verse 3, but you, O Lord, are a shield for me, my glory and the one who lifts up my head. So here is the faith that David has shown since 1 Samuel chapter 17 up against Goliath. Now, Goliath is, while he is a giant, 9'9", if I'm remembering correctly, converting it over into feet, while Goliath is a giant and a trained warrior, Absalom has loyalty from some powerful people who can go into battle and go into battle for him. Now things would look bleak. Things would look bleak. There is no help for him in God. There's no help for him in God. We're just going to focus on that this morning. That somehow someone thinking that God is incapable of help. That God is incapable of actually giving any kind of help to someone. That the problem is so serious, the problem is so severe that somehow God is not able to do that. Now there is an Italian saying, and it is taking God's name in vain. It is. But there's an Italian saying, I can't do it in Italian, but I can do it in English. And that is an exclamation of, poor God. That's peculiar to me. Poor God. As if God, first off, is poor, as if we should somehow cry for God because He's incapable of defeating His enemies. As though He could not do something that it's His will to do. He can, in fact, do it. He can, and if it's in His will, He will do it. If it's in His will. and that there is no help for him in God? Well, as he says, you are my shield. You are the glory that lifts up my head. You are the one. Yes, of course there is going to be help from God. And knowing the events that happen in David's life, in this particular event, Absalom comes to nothing. Matter of fact, who's the one, if you recall, Absalom would grow his hair long and then once a year have it cut? Who's the one that had Absalom's hair caught in the branch of a tree and he's taken directly off the back of a horse as the horse is running? Who's the one that did that? Was it really Absalom that did that? Was it something else that did that? That was the workings of God. And Absalom dies hanging by his hair from the branch of a tree. That's how Absalom dies. Was God incapable of taking care of this problem? Well, in David's life, God had taken care of the problem of Goliath. God had taken care of the problem of a very mad and wicked king. That would be Saul. He had done those things. He had spared him so many times that by this point in time, David knows who his shield is. He knows who can do it. Now, let's go to the book of Exodus. Let's go to Exodus. And here we have, in Exodus chapter 13, is where we want to be. Exodus chapter 13. We see where things look very dire for Israel. Now, God, with a very powerful hand, has pounded Egypt repeatedly to show who has the power here. We start with water turning to blood. That's a serious matter. That means there is no water that the Egyptians can find that isn't blood. Well, you can't drink that and live. All right, you can't sustain yourself on that. Water, you got to have water. But drinking blood, no, that's no good. All the way to the death of the firstborn, where every Egyptian household is hit one way or another. And there would be an enormous drop in population in Egypt overnight. Now, God did those things, but let's look. We're just going to begin in verse 1. So, chapter 14. Did I say 13? Chapter 14, verse 1. Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel that they turn and camp before Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, opposite Baal-zephon. You shall camp before it by the sea. For Pharaoh will say to the children of Israel, They are bewildered by the land. The wilderness has closed them in. This is one more trap for Pharaoh. It's one more trap. Now Pharaoh, if the idea was to lead Israel from Egypt to Canaan, if that was the idea, that's easily done. All you would have to do is march where you are in Egypt, go to the Mediterranean, and turn right and follow the coast up. All right, that's easy. Anybody can do it. As long as you can find the Mediterranean, you got it. You don't want to turn to the west. You don't want to turn left. You want to turn right. Turn right at the Mediterranean, which sounds like funny directions. Turn right at the Mediterranean, follow the coast up, and you will be in Canaan. But that's not what God does. He sends them due east, so it would seem. He sends them east right to the Red Sea. And He's doing it as a trap. Because He knows, this is how Pharaoh hardens his heart. Pharaoh hardens his heart. and yes, God is the one doing it, because God is setting up traps knowing what Pharaoh's response is going to be. He knows what Pharaoh's response is going to be. He is a difficult man to deal with. He knows, because Pharaoh is arrogant, he's going to say, the land has bewildered them. They don't even know how to navigate. They can't even, they're going directly to the Red Sea. What do they think they're going to do there? So this is what happens. Then, verse 4, then I will harden Pharaoh's heart so that he will pursue them, and I will gain honor over Pharaoh and over all his army, that the Egyptians may know that I am the Lord. And they did so. Now it was told the king of Egypt that the people had fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was turned against the people, and they said, why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? Now notice this quick change of mind. How many people did Israel just lose in one night? How many families were affected? Every family was affected. Every family has a firstborn. Every family does. And even where you have you have a married couple, they have no children, one of them may be a firstborn, but then they've got siblings who may be a firstborn. Every family is going to be affected by it. Every family, it will be. And now they're saying, what have we done? We've let them go. Well, did you not realize that the longer you kept them, the worse things got? Didn't that come to your mind? That the worst things got to where you had a tremendous amount of people that died. And you know, it's a coincidence that it was all the firstborn. Isn't that an amazing coincidence? Wow, who would have thought that? It's exactly as Moses said. Now verse 6, so he made ready his chariot and took his people with him. Also he took 600 choice chariots and all the chariots of Egypt with captains over every one of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the children of Israel, and the children of Israel went out with boldness. Now, first off, does the Lord harden the heart of Pharaoh? Yes. How did he do it? By doing something Pharaoh would look down on. That's how he did it. By doing something that Pharaoh would say, these are a dumb people. What God is leading them, what was the one that just did 10 plagues, what God is leading them, they can't even navigate right. We can trap them easily. And yeah, it would have been an easy trap. It would have been. He's right about that. It would have been an easy trap. Now notice the children of Israel went out with boldness because they just left Egypt. Egypt is left weeping for the death of the firstborn. They're leaving with boldness, but not when they see who's following them. So verse 9, so the Egyptians pursued them, all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, his horsemen and his army, and overtook them camping by the sea beside Pi-Hihiroth before Baal-Zephon. And when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. So they were very afraid, and the children of Israel cried out to the Lord. They are very afraid of what they see, because this would be the army of Egypt let loose on them to destroy them or bring them back. All right? That was a nice little holiday you had from work, traveling westward, or traveling eastward, traveling to the east. Now you're heading back. All right, that was a nice little time you had there. Now, verse 11. Then they said to Moses. Now notice, they cried out to the Lord. Yeah, but some of them have an attitude problem. Because there were no graves in Egypt, have you taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you so dealt with us to bring us up out of Egypt? Is this not the word that we told you in Egypt, saying, let us alone that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness. Okay? This is what they begin to say. And actually, this is going to be a running theme with the complainers in Israel. The complainers. Did you take us out here for us to starve to death or to die of thirst? Did you take us out here so that because there weren't enough spaces for graves in Egypt, that you've got to take us out here and now kill us? Is this what you have done? Now we look at that's a terrible attitude. That is having no faith in the one who just showed a powerful might in Egypt, and they're leaving because of what God has been doing to Egypt. Verse 13, notice what he says. And Moses said to the people, do not be afraid. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which He will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall see no more forever. The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold. Why this is even happening. You have no idea what is about to happen with the plans of God because He's not revealed it to you yet. How is God supposed to protect us? How is He supposed to fight for us? And the answer would have to be from here in Exodus chapter 14, I don't know, let's find out. I don't know, let's see. Let's see what He's going to do. But He's going to do something. And He has a plan in mind. And it never would have occurred to them, these complainers, that God had brought out, He had hardened Pharaoh's heart, He had brought them out, and they're never going back. He brought those Egyptians out, I'm talking about, He brought that Egyptian army, and they're never going back home. Now, how do you explain that? How did the Egyptians explain that? Well, they went out, but how long are they staying out? Has anybody spotted them? Well, no. No one has so much as spotted them. Something happened. Well, yes, something did happen. But understand, hold your peace means, it doesn't mean don't pray to God. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that you cannot cry out to the Lord, because you can, but not out of complaint. Not out of complaint, not out of faithlessness, of you are incapable, that all this is a failure, isn't it? All this is a failure. You brought us out of Egypt so that we could die here. Well, God does not fail ever. And God may have a reason for something happening in our lives that brings about a result we never would have imagined. Just like is happening here. They never would have imagined that they continue on. That is, Israel continues on the other side of the Red Sea. They continue on the other side of the Red Sea. And you have the Song of Moses in the next chapter. The Song of Moses being sung about the victory they just had. Now also in the next chapter there's going to be more complaining, but let's leave that alone for the moment. The hold your peace. That there can be times in our life that something is happening and it's happening for good. And it may be something good for us, and we always want that, or it may be something that's good for somebody else. And thinking selflessly, that's good too. It could be something for someone we've never met, and someone we might never meet ever. And things that can occur after, things that occur after our death, that's for the benefit of others that we never saw on this earth. But after our death, that effect goes into play. Think of Stephen, Acts chapter 7 and 8. Think of Stephen and his death. Did Stephen see what his death did to the church at large, to the church at Jerusalem, but the church at large? Everyone spread out, and the church went to other places. Church went to other places. Something that Stephen could not have seen in his lifetime. A terrible act, yes, but God may have something really good that's going to take place because of it. Something very good. Now, while God saves Israel, and He's going to, He doesn't save Stephen. And it's for different reasons. For different reasons altogether. Sometimes that you have someone like a Peter who it has been determined he's going to be executed, but Peter is allowed to escape. Matter of fact, it's an angel that comes in and gets him out. Whereas others, such as James or a Stephen, that doesn't happen to them because it's God's plans that are being done of what God has planned for certain actions that occur on this earth, whether good or bad, that He has certain plans for them. But hold your peace. Stop talking about what you fear. Stop talking about that. Stop talking as though God is incapable of solving this. Stop talking about this, that He's incapable of helping. Stop doubting God. Have faith and be at peace. Have faith and watch what God is going to do. Just watch. And I know firsthand that can be a frightening thing. What is it going to be? Don't know. But just watch. Whatever it is, it's going to be excellent. Now, we go from here to the book of Esther. To the book of Esther. And we see where Esther is made queen. She is the wife of the most powerful man on the earth in that day. She is queen. And there is a very wicked man by the name of Haman who has manipulated the king and manipulated, using his position, manipulated to where there is a law that is calling for genocide of the Jews. That wherever the Jews are, it's a field day. You destroy them. Yeah, that it's an open season. You just go and you destroy the Jews. Now, there is someone that Haman has overlooked. There's assumptions that Haman has made. And the enemies of God always do this sort of thing. They're always outsmarted by God. Always. And they're always caught by their own arrogance. Always caught by it. But it's that Haman, there are certain things that Haman hasn't quite grasped yet. That there is a queen who's Jewish. All right, well, what does that mean? All right, anyway, we have Mordecai, verse 13. Let's go to verse 13. Mordecai goes to Esther because she appears to be the only one who can stop this. She has the king's ear. Mordecai doesn't. She has the king's ear. He will listen to her. All right, so we're in Esther chapter 4, verse 13. And Mordecai told them to answer Esther, "Do not think in your heart that you will escape." Well, we need to back up just a little bit. Let's go to verse 7. And Mordecai told him all that had happened to him and the sum of money that Haman had promised to pay into the king's treasury to destroy the Jews. He also gave him a copy of the written decree for their destruction, which was given at Shushan, that he might show it to Esther and explain it to her, and that he might command her to go into the king to make supplication to him and plead before him for her people. So Hathach returned and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Then Esther spoke to Hathach and gave him a command for Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces know that any man or woman who goes into the inner court of the king who has not been called, he has but one law: put all to death except the one to whom the king holds out the golden scepter, and he may live. Yet I myself have not been called to go into the king these 30 days. So that's her response to this. Is if I go to talk to the king in the inner court, he's going to kill me. Okay? So they told Mordecai Esther's words. And Mordecai told them to answer Esther, "Do not think in your heart that you will escape in the king's palace any more than all the other Jews. For if you remain completely silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise from the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" Who knows? That providentially you may be there just because of this problem. Now, Mordecai couldn't have known any more than the rest of us concerning the providence of God as it's occurring. Okay? Hindsight, we can see it. But foresight, it's impossible to see. It's impossible to see. Nobody would have known that Haman would have done this sort of thing. But here is our next point in all of this, and it comes from, "Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this." That the providence of God is hidden in plain sight. Plain sight. She is there, ready for the problem that nobody even knows about, until Haman decides he's going to do it. God already has a solution in place before Haman creates the problem or even thinks about the problem. That this is all in unpredictable directions. And certainly Haman could not have predicted that, oh, the queen is Jewish. Okay, this is trouble. God's enemies overlook His choices for solutions. Always overlook His choices for solutions. Notice, let's go to 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 18. "For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise and bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent. Where's the wise? Where's the scribe? Where's the disputer of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of this world? For since in the wisdom of God the world through wisdom did not know God, it pleased God through the foolishness of the message preached to save those who believed. For the Jews request a sign and the Greeks seek after wisdom." Notice, those who are perishing completely overlook God's solution to a problem. Now, everybody, whether they want to admit it or not, has seen the problem and knows it's a problem. Everybody has. Everybody knows there is wickedness that any one of us can do. And every one of us, to a person, unless you just need more sense, every person wants to be left alone concerning wickedness. I might do wickedness, but I don't want wickedness done to me. Now, that is in fact recognizing wickedness for what it is. Okay, so there is a problem. God has given the solution, but the solution is not seen as any kind of wisdom whatsoever. Matter of fact, it's seen as foolishness. The idea that the Son of God would come to this earth and die by way of crucifixion. Now, to the Gentile mind, that just doesn't work. All right, that seems very odd. The Son of God coming to this earth should defeat all His enemies immediately. And be kind of like a superhero, be kind of like a Samson figure of doing all these extraordinary physical things. That's the worldly, or at least that's the Gentile viewpoint. That's the way it should have occurred. The fact that He came, He's Jewish, He's from a small town in Galilee, and the Romans killed Him as an execution. Well, that's God's solution. That's God's solution. And God is not poor in any way, and God helps in every way, even when it takes the Son of God to die on the cross for us. Even when. Now, who knows? We come And because of that, the plot of Haman is exposed. And Haman, actually, who has built a gallows, is going to be hung from that, or hanged from that gallows. Now, let's go to Acts chapter 24. We have just studied this on Wednesday. But in Acts chapter 24, beginning in verse 12, there is a group of men, more than 40, who have vowed to kill Paul. There's more than 40 of them. And the vow is that they will, and they're vowing their own life, as a matter of fact. They're vowing that they will neither eat nor drink until Paul is dead. And as we were discussing Wednesday, I doubt they kept that vow. Seriously doubt that any of them died of hunger or lack of water. I completely doubt that. Now, this plot involves the chief priests, and they've got a part to play, and the elders, they have a part to play, and they are to send someone up to the commander, the Roman commander, to have Paul brought down to them so that they can inquire a little more. And we were mentioning on Wednesday that they haven't inquired anything out of him except for one question that we find earlier in the chapter. And it's just, do you revile God's high priest? After Paul said what he said. That's the only inquiry they've made. We want to make more inquiry as though they've done anything. All they want to do is kill him. That's all they want to do. And of course, this is under a false pretext that we just want to inquire more. But as they're going to have to take Paul from where he's kept in the barracks to wherever this council is going to be, wherever this court is going to be held, these 40 some odd men are going to kill Paul. Now, there is a small child. I call him small. There is a child called a young man who overhears this plot. And it happens to be Paul's nephew. Paul's nephew hears the plot and he goes to tell Paul. And Paul asks that his nephew be taken to the commander, that the commander be told about this plot. And the commander immediately recognizes the danger. Don't tell anybody that you've told me this, and that Paul is going to be taken out of Jerusalem that night. He's going to be taken out of Jerusalem that night. Now, who is protecting Paul? Is it the Romans or is it God? Well, it's the Romans, yeah. But it's the Romans that God has placed there to do it. God is in control. If we go back to verse 11, here is what Paul was told by Christ before there's even a plot. And once again, God's giving a solution, or God's giving the news that, this is going to fail before this even crops up. Before it even happens. But the following night the Lord stood by him and said, did I say 24? I'm sorry, we're in Acts chapter 23. We're in Acts chapter 23. That's the second time today I've got the chapter wrong. We're in chapter 23, verse 11. Be of good cheer, Paul, for as you have testified for me in Jerusalem, so you must also bear witness at Rome. And here is this point, this final point. Be of good cheer. He is being held as a prisoner in a city that wants him dead. Very, very powerful people want him dead. And Christ says, be of good cheer. All right, now Paul wasn't complaining as those in Exodus were complaining. He's not complaining at all. But he's not told, hold your peace. Just be still and hold your peace. He's telling him, be of good cheer. Because something is about to occur that would sound dire, that would sound very serious. But God is also telling Paul, you've got a future. Yeah, you've testified here in Jerusalem. You're going to testify for me in Rome. That's a future. Now, it's future as a prisoner. He doesn't say you're going to be free to do whatever you want to do. He's not saying that, but you've got a future. And your future doesn't lie here in Jerusalem, and in a matter of hours where they're going to kill you. It's going to be in Rome. You're going there. Now, exactly when Paul died, we're not told by Scripture. Exactly when. And so it most likely would have been events in Rome, and historically that's what we're told. But historians are not inspired. At any rate, be of good cheer. And he's saying God is going to take care of you. Wait on Him. God is going to take care of you. You have absolutely nothing to lose. And when all of this is over, of something that he knows nothing about at this point, when all of this is over, you're going to have a future. You will have a future. Now let's look at these three major things, and not talking about David, but from Moses and Israel to that of the Jews in Esther's day to that of Paul. We have that of hold your peace. You may be a part of providentially bringing this about anyway, to bring about the solution. Think of it that way. How can I be part of the solution for this problem? Can I be part of what God brings about providentially, and also know that God is going to solve this one way or another? If it's not me, it's going to be somebody else. Some way else. It's going to happen. But be willing to be part of solving the problem. Be willing. And then there at the end be of good cheer. It's something that Paul could not have solved on his own. Couldn't. But it's going to be solved by God. God is going to protect him. God is going to bring about exactly what He said. You've testified in Jerusalem, you're going to testify in Rome. In all of this, is there no help for him in God? The answer is yes, there is. You follow God, God's going to have your interest at heart. God can bring about very good things for you through things that can be painful, emotionally or physically. God can bring about great things even from our death, such as with Stephen. He can bring about great things. Can God help us? Yes. And you know what? He will. And if we all were to die today, what do we have to look for? For the faithful in Christ, it's a paradise on the other side. And that of seeing the other righteous and the innocent who have died before us. And then being brought home to Christ at the last judgment. That's exactly what we need. That's exactly what we should all strive and live for. And we have to have faith in God even when things are bad. Let's look to Him always. We ask this morning, wherever we are in our life, wherever we are spiritually, we can all make improvements. Every one of us can make improvements. There may be things in your life that just need to stop. Well, stop them. Confess the fact that Jesus is the Christ. Confess our faith that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God, and be baptized. There, our sins are taken away. Taken away. And we are brought up that new creature. We are brought up with every right and privilege in the kingdom of God to be brought home with Him. And we are to be faithful. We are to be faithful to Him, living conscientiously, learning, growing. We ask this morning, if you need to respond to the invitation, that you come as we stand and sing.